shocking statement. The pirates weren't after ransom. They tried to hijack 1,200 artillery shells, 320 Javelin missiles, and nearly 8 million rounds off a US Navy weapons ship. That wasn't a raid. It was an arms heist for a transnational network. We'll show you how a sea fight turned into a map of offshore shell companies, Iranian intermediaries, and a coastal fortress hiding $32 million in cash. Watch as the battle at sea becomes a door-kicking inland raid that shut down 12 fortified structures and freed 6 hostages, including 2 Americans. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. The shooting stopped at sea, but the real breach happened when a damp phone lit up on a steel table. The screen flickered, the salt still crusted around the bezel, and a half-charged battery icon stubbornly held. The boarding team had dragged it out of a torn dry bag along with 3 more handsets, 2 handheld GPS units, and a wad of smudged papers tied with fishing line. Salvage crews worked under red lights, knee-deep in sloshing fuel, prying open shattered speedboats and the Providence's scarred railings, hauling out sat-navs, power banks, and notebooks that bled ink. Every piece went into anti-static pouches. Every pouch got a number. On the mess table, the stack looked like junk. It wasn't. The first pass was rough. Most devices booted to lock screens with long codes and wiped call histories. SIM trays were empty or packed with dead cards. Text caches showed strings of letters and numerals that read like burner chatter. No names, only shorthand and initials. A ledger app held columns with single-letter tags and amounts that jumped across currencies, as if someone stitched a bank across 3 time zones. Even the paper manifests were half-ruined, stamps blurred, dates missing. Nothing pointed to a boss, a buyer, or a shipper. It looked like noise. NCIS techs rolled out Pelican cases and turned the galley into a lab. Fleet Cyber plugged in write blockers, cloned drives, and started scraping metadata before the salt finished its work. They pulled timestamp clusters off thumbnails, cached maps, and dormant chat threads. File times matched the attack window down to minutes. Connection logs pointed at relay servers hopping through nodes in Aden and Tehran, with brief pings to a registrar in Muscat. One handset had a notes file auto-saved at the exact moment the first RPG streaked across the water. Here's where link analysis earned its keep. Repeating IMEI numbers popped in audit trails tied to invoices from shell companies that listed themselves as marine lubricants and agri-parts. The same handset identifiers resurfaced on scanned bills, moving $28 million in 6 weeks across 3 offshore entities. The bank fields were clean, but the invoice templates shared a stray footer line and the same typo in a routing address. Different names on paper, one hand on the keyboard. The GPS units gave up breadcrumbs. Tracks ran out of small coves south of Barawi, straight to deep water handoff points that didn't align with fishing runs. Speed profiles matched a 5-boat cluster with sprints and slow rolls that mirrored the formation seen during the attack. Fuel receipts pulled from a notes folder listed volumes that fit those ranges exactly, with totals that matched what the boarding team found in the ruptured bladders. A buried chat log carried a shopping list that read like slang until context snapped it into view. Pipes tagged to counts that matched RPG-7 launchers. Sticks logged in sets that mirrored the Providence's Javelin inventory. The numbers lined up with what the deck crew had already accounted for, down to the missing crates in Bay 4. No bartering for hostages. This was procurement. Then a quiet hit, a single PDF inside a hidden folder called Spares. It listed warehouse numbers 3 to 9, all with short alphanumerics, and a clipped aerial thumbnail of a shoreline with straight edges and cleared lanes. It didn't look like a village. It looked planned. The EXIF data held degrees and decimals. The timestamp lined up with the week before the attack. By midnight, the device network mapped itself. One phone pushed schedules, several pulled, a command node sat at Barawi, relaying routes, fuel drops, and cash pickups. The handsets weren't for ransom. They were the ledger and the routing plan of an arms for drugs exchange moving off a quiet stretch of coast. With coordinates pinned and cash trails stitched, the fight left the water and headed inland toward a map that was about to turn into a target list. Why did one coastline show 12 storage sheds with guard towers and fresh tire tracks cutting straight into sand? Tasking went up before sunrise. Satellites rolled over the Barawi Peninsula, and the feed came down to a cold room where imagery analysts drew boxes around hard lines that didn't belong. Roofs read as reinforced. Berms stacked around perimeters. Thermals showed steady heat even in the cool hours, the kind of signature you get when generators run undercover. Not fishing huts, not customs warehouses. A grid. Patterns gave it away. This wasn't a militia bivouac, and it wasn't a cargo terminal. Security rings stood staggered with offset checkpoints. Camouflage netting draped over long, narrow buildings that matched the footprint of storage aisles. Not barracks. The gaps between them looked designed to break blast waves, and the access roads came in doglegs instead of straight lines. That's how you slow vehicles and force a turn under a rifle barrel. The shoreline had a purpose beyond docking a skiff. Signals traffic started to line up with money. Bank alerts that flagged suspicious wires hit the board within the same window as fuel orders and courier cash drops. Over 3 days before the sea attack, the site pulsed. Tankers offloaded diesel, cash couriers checked in, and small boats launched out of the coves at night, returning at dawn. Each tick matched a transfer logged in the seized phones and a movement seen from space. The cycle wasn't random, it was a schedule. Change detection tools pulled the rest into focus. Fresh trenches appeared along the south fence in the last 10 days. Small circular scars with vents near them showed where someone dug and hid breathing shafts for tunnels. Imagery highlighted blast walls around key buildings, single entry points with double doors, and square pads for diesel bladders next to them. Those are standard tells for arms storage. You build to contain heat and shrapnel, you limit doors to control access, and you keep fuel close but separated by earth. The manifests seized at sea gave numbers that snapped onto the image. Labels in the overheads matched claims in the paperwork. 180 RPG launchers and crates coded to heavy machine gun spares, with about 2 million rounds to feed them. Corner shadows and forklift tracks lined up with pallet counts. On the shore side, dark bags grouped in 4 rings matched 40,000 gallons of diesel staged in bladders. When analysts overlaid crate dimensions from the phone photos, the lengths and stacks matched the long sheds that had vents spaced 4 meters apart. Money told the route. Financial ledgers linked the hub to the Black Tide cartel, with coded shipments charting west to Venezuela and Colombia and east to Yemen and Sudan. The ledgers, tied back to the same shell companies the phones exposed, named brokers that traced to Iranian intermediaries. Each route showed a product swap and a payback window. The timing matched sightings of fast boats heading for deep water handoff points and freighters that never called at a port. Then a human detail cut through the spreadsheets. Analysts froze a side room in one long building. A line of clothes hung tight against a wall. On the slab below, a painted symbol matched a mark seen in the device photos. A page lay on the floor with block writing consistent with a hostage note. The presence of laundry inside a hardened shed didn't fit storage, it fit people kept in place. By the end of the pass, the Barawi grid read like a manual, 12 fortified structures and a buried network feeding an arms for drugs corridor. The packet had enough to plan a hit aimed at cash, cocaine and living captives. The target package was ready, and at first light, what looked like a shoreline fortress would become evidence, one room at a time.